Welcome to Tech News Briefing. It's Thursday, December 7th. I'm Alex Ossola for The Wall Street Journal. Shanghai-based tech company Alibaba once seemed invincible. When Alibaba went public in 2014, it controlled 80% of China's retail e-commerce sector, according to market researcher Insider Intelligence. But today, the picture of its business and its prospects seem a bit less rosy. WSJ China tech editor Liza Lin looked into the company, and we should note that Alibaba did not respond to requests for comment. So if you've heard of Alibaba, you've probably heard it in the context of e-commerce. Like I've heard it called China's Amazon. But is that all the company does?
You're right. A lot of people think about e-commerce when they think about Alibaba, mainly because e-commerce was the first business that Alibaba went into. And e-commerce is still the biggest driver of its business now. But in reality, Alibaba is this huge Chinese tech conglomerate. It's got its fingers in everything from cloud computing to mobile payments to digital entertainment, even like grocery deliveries.
Where does Alibaba actually operate? Where could I access the e-commerce side of things?
Yeah, Alibaba has several e-commerce platforms. People only remember Taobao and Tmall because those two are the biggest ones. But actually, Alibaba started off as a B2B website, Alibaba.com, of which if you were sitting in the US, you could go onto. And that actually helped Alibaba rise up in fame in its early years.
Tell me a little bit about what business was like before 2020.
So before 2020, Alibaba was this private company in China that seemed to do no wrong. It was invincible. Investors loved it. It was the de facto China proxy if you were buying stock exposure to China. And mainly because Alibaba, with its e-commerce platforms, represented a barometer of Chinese consumption, which was at that point growing very rapidly. And in addition to that, because of all its other peripheral businesses, its digital entertainment, its mobile payments, its cloud computing, it was seen as representing China's innovation at its best.
So fast forwarding to 2020, things seem to have gone sour. What changed?
The pivot point really came at the end of 2020. That was when China decided to announce this huge crackdown on its increasingly powerful and very, very dominant tech space. And Alibaba was really Exhibit A. Firstly, because it was a large tech company, and secondly, because it had a very charismatic, outspoken, and often very controversial founder whose name was Jack Ma. So what happened to Alibaba then really was the first straw came when Alibaba's mobile payment affiliate, its name is called Ant Group, it had its massive IPO called off by Chinese regulators. And that was meant to be the IPO of the decade. It was a huge IPO. Everyone was waiting for it. And I would say during that period, the Chinese consumer itself was changing. Instead of just wanting to buy products on a platform such as Alibaba, very similar to Amazon, what they wanted to do was they were starting to buy more products on social media platforms. It's a term called social commerce. They were going on platforms such as Douyin, which is China's TikTok, and they were seeing products and they were buying on impulse, or people were sharing links through social media and then they were making purchases that way. So Alibaba got caught completely off guard when this shift in consumer buying happened. And now it's still struggling to catch up.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about what's going on with the company now.
Yeah, since the crackdown, Alibaba's been struggling to regain its mojo. Earlier this year, they announced a strategy to carve itself up into 6 different business units. And the idea was to just empower these business units to act like a startup again, to give them more decision-making power so they could act more nimbly to fight off competition. And the eventual plan was to spin them off either in a listing or just to help them get external funding. What's been happening, though, is that this strategy has been completely in flux because since it was announced in March, what we've seen is Alibaba has lost a CEO that was, handpicked, and everyone knew he was the longtime successor to Jack Ma. And with the leaving of the CEO, there is a new CEO coming in who's trying to right the ship. But since that new CEO has come in, what's also happened is they've called off 2 IPOs. So Alibaba really is in this period where it's very turbulent times for the company.
We've been talking about Alibaba's sort of like huge footprint and all the things that it's been doing, but why does it actually matter that the sort of big and mighty Alibaba is maybe a little less mighty? What effect could this have on consumers?
For consumers, really, it's not a huge shift because what has happened over the last couple of years is there's been a mushrooming of other smaller rivals, often a lot more nimble than Alibaba, into the space. And one rival is called Pinduoduo. Pinduoduo is a Chinese company that essentially pioneered shopping on social media, and Pinduoduo's market cap in November overtook Alibaba. And Pinduoduo is a much younger company. It's less than 10 years old.
And so just turning back to Alibaba now, what will it take to sort of right the ship, to turn things around?
So when you talk to staff and when you talk to investors, the overriding answer is that people want Alibaba to rebuild that confidence that they used to have in Alibaba. For staff, they've seen a lot of layoffs since the tech crackdown. They want to know that their jobs are steady. They want to know that the management won't change and it's going to be consistent and coherent. For investors, they were once sold a longer term strategy by Jack Ma and previous executives. They want a similar strategy, but tailored for this day and age of Gen AI and everything else.
That was our China Tech editor, Liza Lin. And that's it for Tech News Briefing. Today's show was produced by Julie Chang with supervising producer Catherine Millsop. I'm Alex Ossola for The Wall Street Journal. Thanks for listening.